What up, what up? We are live. What's going on? Happy Monday to you. I am at home, just wondering if my daughter wants to get on a Facebook Live. She says no. So, guys, I just want to tell you a quick update of what happened the last few days. I had some guys in town from the Landscape Lighting Secrets program, and it was a killer time, had a blast, and I'm trying to figure out how to work this camera. But I also want to go over something that I wish I would have learned early on. Oh man, I wish I would have known this getting started. And you know, when I started my business, I didn't really have a plan to grow to a certain stage to sell, and I didn't have a plan to get to a certain revenue. Like I didn't really plan a lot. Okay, I just kind of was like, yeah, let's go make a lot of money, whatever. And then, as you guys probably know, as you start to grow and everything else, you start to figure out, okay, I should probably have a plan. And you start to figure out what your why is and what keeps you working every day and everything else. And so I want to get into that, and I want to get into something that we talked about this last week with some of the guys from my program. But it was an absolute blast. We had 3 guys come out for the first annual Landscape Lighting Secrets ski trip, and it was a blast. Like, it was cool because honestly, these guys, I know them from online, and we do weekly meetings and everything else, but it's different when you're in person hanging out. So it was, you know, I had a blast just getting to know everybody in person and getting to know them a little bit better than just talking about business all the time. But I will say this, you know, when you get guys together that have things in common, we talked a lot about business, talked a lot about landscape lighting and what's going on in their personal lives and personal businesses and everything. And, you know, we really discovered a lot of things, right? And we talked about a lot of different things, but one thing in particular stuck out to me is this. And this was the one thing that I'm like, man, I wish I would have known this earlier on in my career. And that one thing is this, that we were talking about their employees and how it's hard to hold them accountable because, you know, you've got a foreman that's been with you for a while and you tell him, hey, we need to get this done and stay late or whatever. And they're like, no, I'm going home, right? And have you guys ever had that? Like, raise your hand, post it in the comments. Let me know if you've ever had that issue where it's hard to hold your employees accountable. Because I know it's certainly been one of those things that's been hard for me in the past. And so one of the guys was asking me, like, how do I hold them accountable? Because I tell them, like, hey, this is what we got to do. If this doesn't happen, then this consequence, whatever. But it's like, if he holds them accountable too much, then he's not going to have a crew because they'll just not show up, right? And it's hard, you know, because when you read books on hiring and building culture and everything else, like it makes sense on paper, but in the real world, it's not the same. Because a lot of those books were written for corporate America, and you can hold someone accountable and tell them, hey, if this doesn't improve, then you're going to lose your job, and you can fire them because there's going to be someone else right behind them. Like, just get the next resume and hire the next person, right? Well, in the service industry, in the service world, you know, we don't have that luxury of just being like, well, if a guy doesn't work out, I'll just hire the next guy. Like, as you guys know, it's not that easy. There's not just this line of people at the door over here just waiting to come work for us. And so I want to give you this tip, which should really, really help you. And it's going to change not only your personal life, but your business and everything. Because there's no book that you can read. There's no seminar you can attend. In my opinion, if you're just going to stay small, and it's just you and maybe like 1 or 2 other guys, it's really hard to hold them accountable. It's hard to build culture. It's hard to do these things that they talk about in the books because the books weren't written for these small businesses, okay? They were written for budding companies that have 10, 15, 20 employees, and then you can start to hold people accountable. So my advice is this. If you're struggling with accountability, if you're struggling with culture, you're like, okay, tell me what it is. Like, this is going to sound so dumb, but it's the truth, okay? The only way to overcome it is to grow, is to scale. And when I figured this out, my business was really transformed. I started to realize, gosh, I can't hold this guy accountable because he would just be like, that's fine, fire me, I quit, whatever. And then what do? I have nobody, right? But if you have redundancy in your business, okay, build redundancy. If you have redundancy in your business, then you can hold people accountable. So let me tell you what I'm talking about. If you have one installer or two installers, one team, and then they start lipping up, or they don't want to follow the standard operating procedures, or they show up late, or they want to leave early, whatever, you can't do much if it's just one crew, because they've got you. Okay, they've got you right where they want you, and they're going to be able to call the shots. But if you have a second crew, a second driver, a second foreman, right, then you can hold them accountable, because you can tell them, like, listen, if you want to go, you can go find, feel free to go look around and find a better opportunity, which you're not going to find, because landscape lighting is one of the easiest jobs to install. Okay, and that's why they work there. They know that they could go get a job as a landscaper somewhere and hate their life, but landscape lighting is so easy. Okay, but it's almost impossible to hold them accountable if they're the only crew you have. They know that. Okay, they know that they're the only guys. So what are you gonna do? Fire them? Like, you're not gonna do that. But if you have redundancy in your business, you have a second crew, it's gonna allow them to not take advantage of you. Okay, and they're gonna know. Okay, well, if he fires us, he's got this other crew right here, right? And so the bigger you grow, the easier it is to run a business, because you can do some of these things that actually do work. Okay, some of these books and trainings and stuff like that, they actually do work. It's just that you have to be a certain size in order for it to start working, right? And I found this out the hard way, because it took me a while to grow and scale, and I kept having a hard time holding people accountable. But then I realized that one day, I was like, you know what? Like, I need another crew. And then it's true. I really saw it happen, where all of a sudden they started to respect me a little bit more, because they knew at the end of the day they could lose their job, right? They could get punished. And that's what we started to do. We started to hold guys accountable. So it was like, hey, if someone started to get lippy, or wanted to feel like they were, in charge and whatever, wanted to be big boss, it's like, hey, you know what? Why don't you take a day or two off? Think about what happened. If you need to go look for another job, whatever it is, and then let's have you start next Monday. And we found that people were like, no, I don't want to do that. I need the money. It's like, okay, now he's not such a big hotshot, right? And that's only possible when you have a backup crew, right? And the same thing applies to salespeople and office people, right? So we had one office manager, and again, after several years, they start to get empowered and start to feel like, hey, man, I'm running the show here and everything else. And they start to develop an attitude and everything else. But when you hire a backup, when you hire an office manager and a secretary, now you have two people in the office that are cross-trained, so that everyone's replaceable. Now, all of a sudden, everyone kind of stays in their lane. Same thing with salespeople. I hired one salesperson, and I hired two salespeople. It got easier to run a business the bigger I grew. And the reason I want to share this message with you is because too many people are reluctant to grow. Some people think, well, I don't want to get that big because it might be a headache, might be a hassle, a pain, whatever. But it's actually easier to run a business when you're growing. When you have redundancy built into your business, I promise you, your business and your life is going to transform. It's going to change, because it actually gets easier. Most people think it's the opposite, and they're so reluctant to hire. They're like, well, I don't know, the stress and the pressure and everything else. It's like, you know what? It gets easier. So my message is have faith in yourself and know that you can do it. Like, it's actually going to be easier if you hire people. It's not harder. It's not more difficult. It's easier with the more people you hire. Now, personally, I always had around 15 to 18 employees. So I'm not going to speak to the scale of 50 or 100, whatever. And I'm not saying that you can't do that. But my point is, if you can have redundancy and have not just one sales guy, but two sales guys, not just one person in the office, but two people in the office, not just one install team, but two install teams, I promise you, it helps make your life get so much easier. That redundancy is huge. And then it allows you to hold people accountable. And holding people accountable is not just punishing them, okay? It's also rewarding them. And when you reward them, people want to reward you. Like, they like to be, treat people like you would want to be treated, okay? A lot of us started our own businesses because we didn't like the way that someone else was treating us as an employee. So if we turn around and treat someone like we were being treated, then we know what's going to happen, right? They're going to leave. They're going to probably start their own business or go somewhere else. But if we treat them like we want to be treated, you're going to see huge, huge gains in your business. But you still want to have that redundancy. The redundancy is so that they don't feel like they own you, because in a sense that's kind of how it is, right? So does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Whatever questions you guys have, post them in the comments. I always say this, and I'm almost boring myself, but I always say this: if you have a question, so does 100 other people. So just post it in the comments. But I hope that makes sense. And honestly, building redundancy in my business was one of the I don't know if it was the biggest thing, but it was one of the biggest things that helped transform my ability to manage my company. And it increased my level of happiness. And I'm sharing that with you because I know that a lot of you guys are afraid of growth and think, oh, I don't want to hire more people. The people out there, there's not good employees and they're not going to work hard and they're not going to do what I'm going to do and everything else. But I promise you that as you grow, the more you grow, the easier it is, okay? And it's a myth to think that, well, I'll just do it myself because, I can't find someone else or whatever. Like, too many people think small and then they wonder why they're not truly happy. But I promise you that if you will grow, if you will make your next hire, and by the way, I'm going to do a video on who to hire first or who to hire next, right? Some of you guys have like 1 or 2 employees, but I want to get you to have like 4 or 5, 6 or 7, 8 or 9. But I'll help you determine who to hire first, okay? And honestly, sometimes it's not what you think. So, in fact, it's usually not. A lot of people like to hire what they're not good at, and that's actually exactly opposite of what you should do. So I'm going to do a completely separate video on who to hire first, who to hire next. But in this video, I really wanted to help you guys understand something that I wish I would have learned years and years ago, was that if you build redundancy in your business and you grow and you scale, it gets way easier. Your employees are happier, the workload's spread out, and that's when you can start to gain full momentum in your business. So if you like this video, let me know. Do the thumbs up, do the heart, do something like that. Give me some interaction so I can chat with you guys. But if you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know. Got nothing but love for you. Peace.